The language of deceit. Notes and extracts. Be aware of the bespoke. Consider for a moment, if you can and if you will, what the world would be like without words, without the transmission of ideas, to just exist, animated, but isolated and silent. Would you be content or confused? We solve little as we evolve, reinventing the wheel because we forgot its purpose, planning our future through excavating our past. The contradiction is not just in our diction, it is in our thoughts, and as a result, in the way that we live. Doublespeak is real. It is a language technique that is proliferant throughout our educated society. It deliberately disguises, distorts, or reverses the meaning of words to give those well versed in the applied technique a psychological advantage. This head start often takes the form of euphemisms, downsizing for layoffs, servicing the target with pinpoint delivery for bombing civilizations back into the Stone Age. Simply, it's making the brutal truth less unpleasant without denying its nature. Such a technique may also be deployed as intentional ambiguity or reversal of meaning. For example, naming a state of war as a position of peace. Head-fucking individuals into a state of confusion and therefore compliance. In such cases, doublespeak disguises the nature of the truth as a lie, or a conspiracy as a conjecture, producing a communication or comprehension bypass. In essence, it is an attempt to reconstruct reality, to not just reframe the picture, but to repaint it. Add to this the knowledge that we in our minds are as fragile as we are agile. Consider that we tend to remember the memories and not the events. We recall the feeling, but are much less sure of the processes. We ought to be more uncertain of our certainties. A euphemism, although a similar tact, is not quite the same as doublespeak. It is not considered as doublespeak if it is used appropriately and without the intention to deceive or mislead. For example, using passed away to suggest somebody is dead is a relatively appropriate use of the euphemism. A squeeze to suggest a lack of time has little negative effect or negative intention. All tools, especially words, are glinting double-edged swords which can comfort and also pacify. Comparisons have been made between doublespeak and George Orwell's descriptions on political speech. In his essays Politics and the English Language, he writes, "Unscrupulous politicians, advertisers, religionists, and other doublespeakers of whatever stripe continue to abuse language for manipulative purposes." One of his fears was that through overt external pressure, we would be overcome, and the resultant effect would be a self-imposed oppression. After all, there is no censorship greater than self-censorship. People would be manipulated to deprive themselves of their own autonomy, maturity, and history. They would eventually come to adore their own incapacities and ignore all else. The weak would become strong in their beliefs, and the strong would be overcome with hesitations or detained through entertainment. Through the right kind of education, the promotion of passivity amongst one class could be contrasted against the elevation of egoism in another, and all through the medium of 26 letters or less. Utopia is just role reversal, an imaginary trading of places. You don't need to burn books in a society where nobody reads more than a line here or a line there. The news will spotlight the local, that is mundane, and highlight the distant, that is irrelevant. There would be no need for continually progressive society, as the status quo would suffice for most. We would be captivated by ourselves and our brilliance and the trivial. We would sing about never being slaves whilst holding on tight and trying to squeeze our head through the iron bars of our invisible cages. There is, without a doubt, the inherent belief that Machiavellian principles are a common unavoidable necessity if the world is to take steps in the right direction. At least, this is what we are taught. There is a greater good. The end will always justify the means. It's going to be difficult for everyone, and we will all have to tighten our belts. Of course, none of this is really true. What is important in the world of doublespeak is the ability to lie, whether knowingly or unconsciously, and to get away with it. It's the ability to use lies and choose and shape facts selectively, blocking out those that don't fit an agenda, philosophy, religion, personal belief, system, or program. Also, to get credits for doing this, and then to teach it to others. Another noteworthy logic control system is that of doublethink, now more commonly seen as a passive acceptance of cognitive dissonance, a kind of personal frequency disruption, noise. This is the act of simultaneously accepting two mutually contradictory beliefs as correct, often in distinct, verifiably opposite social contexts. Our government protects us from their government. It is related to but distinct from hypocrisy and neutrality, This is plainly visible when a person's words and actions are incongruent, where the two beliefs cause conflict in one's own mind, or at least should. Reconsider momentarily the phraseology of equal opportunity, or social distance, or affirmative action, or almost anything else printed and posted on the notice board of your local library. To know and not to know. To be conscious of complete truthfulness while telling carefully constructed lies. To hold simultaneously two opinions which cancel each other out. Knowing them to be contradictory and believing in them both. To use logic against logic. To repudiate morality while laying claim to it. To believe that democracy was impossible and that the party was the guardian of democracy. To forget whatever it was necessary to forget, then to draw it back into memory again at the moment when it is needed or called for, and then promptly to forget it again. Above all, it means to comply with the same process, to the process itself. That is the ultimate subtle control technique. Consciously, it means to induce unconsciousness, and then once again to become unconscious of the act of hypnosis that you had just performed. Even to understand the word doublethink involves the use of doublethink. If that isn't a basic mind melt, I really don't know what is. Still, knowing this, would you rather hold the pen or hold the gun, when each can have such bad consequences in the world around us? Laws are weapons as powerful as any nuclear explosion. Through language, without firing a shot, you are able to give marching orders to the world and have them follow blindly and obediently without much resistance or recourse. The minority may be subjected to whatever the majority wishes, and the majority may easily be swayed or led. Such a powerful weapon in the wrong hands would inevitably destroy humanity through the reduction of meaning into the simplest definitions, perhaps even returning us to the behavior of wild animals in the wilderness. The fact is, we need to be wild, yet we also need to be thoughtful and considerate. The language of deceit. Notes and extracts.